my goodness, what's up everybody? How we doing? How's your Saturday? Fantastic to see everyone. Welcome to Jurassic Park. No, that's a different game. Welcome to Planet Zoo. We're gonna do some tutorial stuff today, so hopefully y'all have some burning Planet Zoo questions that I can half-ass answer. So let's get this stream going here, though. Please work. It all works. Yes. Okay. All right, let me look at chat here. How are we all doing? What's up? Because Samantha, hello. Mel, hello. CNB. So good to see you, dude. Glad you can make it in. Who else? Lucas, how you doing? Ruby. There we are. Rawr. All right, so here's what we're gonna do today. First, I'm gonna turn down my headphones. It's holy heck. Teach me how to play the game. So how you play the game, because is you uninstall it. I'm just kidding. So we're gonna do a tutorial today. A lot of people have been asking me to do more tutorials ever since I did the pathing tutorial, and I like doing that. That was fine, but my brain doesn't work in a teaching fashion, really. Like, I missed some stuff in the pathing tutorial. So those of you that, like, you know, you got some help from it, that's awesome. But I missed like a few things in that are pretty nice to know. So what I figured we'd do today is we'll just go through. I'll kind of just do some basic stuff, but if you have any questions, like whether it's pathing, terrain, the UI, what does this button do? We'll go through it, and we'll just, you know, and I'll try and teach. Hey, what's up, Harrison? How you doing, buddy? Yeah, even the webcam. I know we got the webcam, so cool. Yeah, like I said, we'll just kind of run through. If you have any specific questions, though, please don't feel be afraid or anything. Go ahead and comment below. Chat there. Mel is going to write down and kind of keep track of any requests if I happen to miss some. So Mel, the mod here, she's awesome. So she's really easy to talk to and everything. She's going to write down everything, kind of help keep track of everything there. So, all right, so here we go. So let's just start off with the basics here, I guess. So let's just look at the UI. Let's start there. Let's start with the UI. So let's make sure first that I'm not blocking anything. I am just a little bit. There we go. Heck yeah. So the UI is okay. But in the upper left hand here, you have your help. Now this is going to be for those of you that maybe have a little bit more questions as far as something I don't touch on today. This is where you want to go. This is your tutorial, basically. So if you click on things, it's going to bring up your basic controls. It'll bring up all the fun stuff up here there. You know, placement controls. It'll give you all of your hotkeys and stuff like there. Hotkeys are very important in this game. My left hand is always on WSAD, thumb on the space bar, pinky on the shift. Hotkeys dictate how this game runs, basically. So just again, in this upper left hand corner, the help it actually is really helpful. So yeah, if you have any certain questions that we don't go to, be sure to look up there. Next one is going to be your zoopedia. Zoopedia is the life force of your zoo, basically. I've seen a lot of people asking on different socials, like oh, what animals can I use that can walk through habitats? Like, you know, that I can have people walk through the habitats with them, or how many, you know, wolves do I need? How many males do I need? All that information is in your zoopedia. So if you're looking to, like, sure, an aardvark, if you want to build an aardvark habitat, all that information is in there. So it's going to first give you some general information. That's just generally really interesting, at least to me. And then the next tab here, your natural habitat, is going to tell you where they're from. It's going to tell you the region that they're from and the biome. Now that's important because as you're building the habitat, you need to put the right foliage in there, right? So you need to make sure you do, you know, the right foliage, the right biome, all that fun stuff. So that's giving you a little heads up there. And it's telling you your minimum and maximum, or minimum requirements here for, like, the land requirement. So 330 meters squared. How much water? So if you have like a crocodile or something like that, you know, it's going to need some water. Climbing requirements. So if you have like apes, orangutans, lemurs, something like that, this is going to tell you how much square, you know, meters squared they're going to need to actually have things to climb on. We'll get into climbable things in just a second. Temperature requirements. So this is if you're playing in like a tundra map and it's really cold, like it's below freezing, and you put in a lion, you know, you're going to have to kind of put in some heaters to kind of get that up. So this animal here, the aardvark, they like temperatures between 16 to 40 Celsius. And then finally, your boundary requirement. So I see a lot of people saying, like, oh, my elephant busted through my gate. Like, what the heck? You got to make sure you look at the boundary requirements. You might not be getting a great enough habitat structure there and stuff like that. So as you move on, species data, this is where a lot of stuff is. I feel like I'm doing this a lot, but it's important. Except X, that works. Your X is working, mine doesn't. Have you read the whole thing yet? What, of the aardvarks? No. My franchise game crashed 48 hours 2 days ago. Really don't want to delete it. How can I save my gold homebred animals? I think if you put, it's in franchise. Ooh. I don't think you can. Maybe someone else knows a little bit more about that. I should note that franchise mode, I haven't really messed around with that because I don't like that whole online aspect. But I think because your franchise is all tied up into your online stuff, if you delete your franchise, you delete everything. So, sorry if that's not a good answer, but how do I build a wooden roller coaster without using the booster rails? Well, the first thing you're gonna go get a different game. So here in your species data, hi Pippi, how you doing, by the way? You're gonna look at your social needs and stuff here. So the group size is going to tell you, and this is really important if you don't want your animals to be fighting all the time. Unless you want them to fight, then that's, you know, your prerogative. But see here, the group size is 1 to 2, 1 male, 1 female. So the bachelor size group is 1 to 2, 1 to 2 females. Dominance, none. Mating system, polygamous. There you go. So it tells you if there's going to be like just, you know, one-on-one, like 1 male, 1 female, they have a kid. Or if it's going to be, you know, multiple partners kind of thing. Relations with humans, shy. So that's going to tell you that you probably can't walk into their habitat with them and stuff like that. Guests can enter the habitat. I'm just going to retract what I just said because right underneath there is right here. So yeah, guests enter habitat? Yes, I know a lot of you are looking for this right here. So, but yeah, this gives a lot of information there. I think if you close the zoo, you keep your animals, you have to double check. So I don't know how it works on franchise mode though. Franchise mode is different because it's all tied up online there. So follow up. Will bears ride it? I think the grizzly bears will, but not the Himalayan bears. Life expectancy. Here's another really important one because I see a lot of people buying an animal and then it dying like, you know, 2 years in game time later. And they're like, whoa, what happened? Blah, blah, blah. Make sure you check the life expectancy of the animal that you're buying. If we were to get an aardvark now that's 15 years old and they only live till 18, they probably can't reproduce then either. That's another thing. Sexual sterility. There it is. Age of sexual maturity is 2 years, and it's sterile until death. A lot of animals aren't sterile or sexual sterile. Word here. A lot of them don't go till death. A lot of them will stop beforehand. So again, if you're like trying to breed like some grizzly bears, but you know, it's really old, the female grizzly bear might not be able to bear cubs and stuff like that. So that's just something to kind of, you know, keep in mind. Another thing here is the time that they're pregnant and everything like that. So, you know, you have 7 months, 24, just all that information. It's, if you're planning your zoo out and you're trying to plan accordingly for the future and stuff, the zoopedia is where it's at. So they're so picky. How fast is game time? It's always so small in the videos that I can't tell. How fast is game time? Oh, someone did the math on it. It's a lot shorter than Planet Coaster. Like an in-game time, or like a game year or something like that, is only a few hours. I think it's like 2 hours or something for a game year, maybe less than that. It's definitely less than Planet Coaster though. They need to address it. I agree that they need to address it. Research status. So we're gonna get into research in just a little bit here, but as you go through and now we're in a sandbox park. I should note that if you look down here, we're in a sandbox park, so I have unlimited everything. So we have everything already researched, ready to go. If you didn't have the animal researched at all, you wouldn't see any of these fun facts and the diets and the habitat enrichments and stuff like that. And that goes towards as well in your franchise and challenge modes. When you first start out, you have nothing researched. So if you look at your animal and the enrichment is 0 and you can't find an enrichment item for that animal, it's because you haven't researched it yet. You have to take your vet and research that animal to get the, you know, more research status and stuff like that. So there is that, and that's how you get all these different food enrichments and habitat enrichments. And then the last thing is interspecies enrichment. So this is a more modern zoo idea, but it's definitely, if you're building a more modern zoo habitat and stuff like that, something to consider. So you have, if you look at animals like on a savanna, so like a giraffe and zebra, you know, all these different animals can intermix together. It'll tell you on this screen what animals can mix together if you have an animal selected that can do that. The aardvark doesn't benefit from sharing its habitat with other species, but if we were to select like the African buffalo here, you'll see that it brings up all of these animals that if you put them together in a giant habitat, they'll benefit from it, and you'll see it in their enrichment. So there is the zoopedia. One more thing to take away from the zoopedia is that they also have the zoopedia here for the small exhibit animals as well. So they go through, ooh, sorry, there's a FedEx truck outside, sorry. I'm sure it's a little bit loud. So it has all the basic information there as well. The only thing is you can't, they can't share other habitats with other species, and there's, you know, so there's just a few things to take away from that. So there we go there. There he is. What's up, Paulsley? So that's what I was going to get at. I was hoping Paulsley was going to show up. Everyone say hi to Paulsley. If you don't know who Paulsley is, go check that man out. And if I miss anything today, he's made a tutorial for it. I'm waiting for you to make a tutorial on how to turn a computer on. And then I'm waiting for you to make another tutorial on how to double click the Planet Zoo icon to launch the game. All jokes aside though, if y'all aren't following Paulsley, do follow him. He has a vast array of tutorials on Planet Zoo out, so definitely be following him. And he just makes great content otherwise, so. Alrighty. Let's see. So unbearable, bless you, CMB. No pressure, but this stream will decide if I buy this or the new Star Wars game. Oh no! Damn it, Harrison. They're two totally different games. It's kind of what you're feeling. Have you watched any of my other content, by the way, Harrison? Green for a Day? Whatever. But yeah, they're totally different games. If you're feeling like designing and stuff like that, awesome. And if you like Planet Coaster, awesome. And if you like zoos, those three are your big ones. Yeah. Let me just catch up here a little bit. At least to me, to barely able to get, god damn. Are you going to play career mode? I just started a challenge mode, Nicole. I did just start a challenge mode, not a franchise mode, but a challenge mode. So it's just like franchise mode, but offline. Yeah, I just started that. I'm making one on to make one. There you go. There we go. So cool. So the next little bit there in the upper left-hand corner is your notification timeline. We founded the zoo! That's all that happens. So if an animal becomes pregnant, if an animal passes away, if an animal gets disease, if an inspector is coming, if someone throws some trash up, no, that doesn't do that. But this is your timeline, so it's gonna say where everything is going on. So if you are in the middle of building and you're getting a little overwhelmed, you're like, oh, I can't keep track of my zoo. Timeline is where it's at. Timeline is gonna, you know, catch you back up what you missed maybe while you were building, maybe you forgot to hit pause, whatever. Just your timeline's where it's at. So ICMB. So next thing, lower left-hand corner. This is important. This is very important. You can also hit H. H is this. But yeah, the this heat map is like, holy heckaroonies, y'all. This is everything. So this is your animal welfare at a quick glance. Go through habitat. Kind of can't really show this right now, but I will. Shows the traversable areas. If they have a shelter, where can they do a shelter and everything? Where's our collab? Well, you gotta stop making so many tutorials. Temperature, telling you how hot it is or cold. The water. If we did put water down, which here, let's go and do that real quick. This music's lit. We'll get to, well, I'm not gonna, oh fuck. I'm not gonna skip over the terrain tools. I'll go over them, but I just want to put down water real quick. All right, so there you go, shows up water. Now, if it was inside of a habitat, you would have to filter that water, right? And it would show up here if the water was icky or good. Power, just like it sounds. Oh, hey, here's a real little quick tip trick. Take advantage of this before Frontier patches it. This shows power, by the way, the radius of the power, but your front entrance gates give off power, and you can duplicate them, or you can build them. So if you want to not have a bunch of, where is it? If you don't want to have a bunch of power facilities going on in your sandbox zoo, guess what you can do? Watch. You can just take this and go, and then watch what happens. Ah, it's like powered. So until Sandbox gets patched to actually be Sandbox, you can do that. Anyways, buildings, they'll show the different facilities, staff facilities, guest facilities. Negative impact on guests. This one's important because of our staff buildings. Guests don't like to look at staff buildings, so there you go. Guest education, well, that'll show up when you start educating guests, the area of influence for that, and the guest needs. Just kind of show happiness, energy. So again, your heat map like covers a hecton, a metric hecton of stuff. So. Fairly regularly, and I'll probably get both eventually, just not sure which one first. For sure, I appreciate that, Harrison. The new Star Wars games looks fucking sick. Not gonna lie. I know this is gonna be blasphemy, but I would say get the new Star Wars game and just plow through that, and then come back to Planet Zoo. And I only say that because by the time you come back to Planet Zoo, there will be patches and updates out to kind of make the game a little bit more stable. It's not stable right now. I'll just be honest with you. It's not a stable game right now. So I'd say go after Star Wars. I know they do. I know. I wish my brain worked better for tutorials, but I just can't do them. Filter water 2 days ago. How do you move your entrance? How do you move your entrance? All right. So this is only in sandbox mode you can do this. If you go to facilities, go to your guest facilities. Lower right hand corner is zoo entrance. Then you can put down a guest spawn point and a guest and a ticket booth. So I did this for Thornton Hills Zoo. I started Thornton Hills Zoo in the corner over here. And you can delete some. You can go over here and delete some. I was told that you can go through here and do this. Oh, they fixed it. Damn. They fixed it. Okay. There was a little thing beforehand where you could delete this building by selecting, but they fixed it, unfortunately. You can delete these as well. Again, this is only for sandbox mode, remember? Okay, only for sandbox mode. You can go through and delete these mammoth jams too. So there you go. So then this, you can just kind of cover it up with trees and stuff like that. So there is that. Let's see here, make sure I didn't miss anybody. Hey Celia, what's up, buddy? I liked your reptile house. It was looking cool. Do you like the franchise mode at all? I haven't done the franchise mode, but I've been doing challenge mode, which is literally the same thing as franchise mode, except it's offline. And I like the challenge mode. It's fun. I'm a more management kind of player, personally. Planet Coaster kind of pushed me to be a design kind of player, I guess you'd say. So I've loved going back and doing the let's play of the challenge mode. It doesn't look pretty, and I'm not really going for like making things look great and all that. We'll go back eventually and do that when we get money. I'm playing it just for management. I'm having a blast. So, help with placement of the educational speakers. I don't understand why it's giving me red circles. I'm taking notes on questions. I'll have a lot. Okay, so the education stuff is probably it's not powered. So always check your power. Oh, where's the frickin' there it is. So yeah, it'll show up red here. We're in the area of influence, but that's just the area of influence. Oh, we have to put down that. We'll get to education. Remember that. We'll get to education. So. What's going through your mind as you're decorating, etc.? Is it just memorization of where the pieces are, or what? Planet Coaster's gigantic heat parts was so daunting you never built anything. So designing, yeah, that's a whole different ball game, isn't it? So designing, for me, a lot of it comes from reference photos, concept art, Google Images. That's a starting point. A reference photo is a really, really good thing to do. Your brain can only remember so much. Usually your brain stops at a square building. You know what I mean? Or like I saw the front of a building. It was brick. It had a door. There were some windows on the side. I think there was a pillar. There might have been some bushes, but then it starts to fizzle out. The best thing what I do and a lot of other people do is I'll have an idea in mind. So I want to make like a classic Victorian entrance or something like that. So then I'll go on Google and type in, classic Victorian houses or Victorian architecture of the 19th century or some shit like that, right? And I'll look up Google Images, I'm like, okay, that works. That's what I'm going for. And then I just kind of start going off of it a little bit. So again, reference photos, Google Maps, big time, and Pinterest, all that kind of fun stuff. Big time helps out. Big time. Because again, just to reiterate, the brain sees general shapes from remembering stuff. I mean, not everyone's like this. Some people can literally design a building from memory or whatever, but generally you're just like, okay, it was a square shape and had a door and a window and a column and a bush, so I guess that's the best way to put it. So next tab, I'll try and catch up with everyone's chat everything for sure, but I want to make sure we touch on the UI. There we are. So the next tab is your zoo overview. This is where you can do all of your management of the zoo for the most part. Opening, closing right here. Set your zoo hours as well. I usually tone it down because zoos aren't open until, you know, 11 o'clock at night normally. You can affect your guest ticket price here. Charge $200. Holy heck. The zoo land tax. I don't know if anyone's noticed this, but the more land that you utilize, the more tax you have to pay on it. You know, well, overview of your guests. Shows your most popular animal. It shows you how many animals, how many different small exhibit species you have, average animal welfare. So this just breaks everything down for you categorically for you here, and you can look at different graphs of it. If you're a data nerd, you're gonna freaking come in here and just be like, yep, this is what it's all about. Then it breaks down even more, you know, loans. If you want to take out a loan, you gotta find in your finance tab over here, marketing. There's marketing campaigns that you can do as well. Look at all this different stuff. They have different appeals as well. So some of them are high impact marketing, divisive appeal, low impact marketing. So a lot of different stuff there. A lot of different stuff there. You demand a collab. Well, we gotta get started. Finish up your tutorials, bro. At once, and it's the process of urban about your zoo. That's awesome. You don't. Hey, what's up, Barbase? Can you move the entire habitat? Whoopsie, I lost that. Can you move the entire habitat, including scenery? Yes, you can save it as a blueprint. The next thing just breaks down all the animals that you have in here. So again, it just kind of breaks down everything. Here's where you hire your peoples. Here's all your different facilities broken down. So it's a big breakdown of the whole zoo, right? Right. Do these zoo hours affect your money? Yes, a little bit. You'll get a little bit less income for the zoo being open shorter hours. But on the flip side of that, I don't know if there's a consequence for having it open longer hours. IRL, zoos close around usually sunset, so that they are a little like an hour or two before sunset, so they can, like, you know, get the animals into their like holding areas and stuff like that. This is a game, obviously, but you know, it depends what you're kind of working for there. Personally, the way that I build and the way I design and stuff like that for like Thornton Hills Zoo and stuff, I'll probably keep it open till like 4 or 5 o'clock and open at like 9. So, all right, next Tabaroonie here. Actually, no, because we're gonna get into barriers next. So let me look here. Probably because I'm sort of. Could you show me how to find the right place for your example? Oh, for like Google Images and stuff. So yeah, sure. Let's go through that. Let's go through that a little bit. So let me bring this over here. Display capture. Do I have one of those? Yeah. There we go. So we're on Google. Let's say we're going. I want to do a lion habitat I can spell concept art. Images. Would you look at that? My video's the #1 video that comes up if you look that up. It's because I'm really good at SEO. Then you go to images here, and then just stuff will start to come up. You know, you'll just start to see like this. You know, I use this concept art here as in the beta. There, you'll start to see this kind of come up here. You don't have to do it just for concept art. You know, if you want to do Victorian house architecture images, and it brings up a bunch of different houses, you know, that, and if I'm like in Planet Coaster, I'm like, oh, I want to design something like that. I'm like, oh, I like that house. I'll look at it and be like, oh, well, I can use that piece. So I'm just like, when I'm looking at this picture, I'm just like, okay, I can use that wall set, and yeah, we have that I can use for that, and I can build a custom roof with this. So hopefully that kind of points you in the right direction. Close that out. There we go. Oops. Chat, come back. There we go. Graphs and stats are the best. Don't take loans. They fuck you up. Yeah, don't. If you can help it, don't take loans. Does research cost money, or is it only the cost of employees' hourly wage? Yes. Just the hourly wage. Great tutorial, yeah. Right piece? This is helpful? Okay. Or the only one? Yeah. Hey Bernard, what's up, buddy? Why do all Victorian houses look like they house a bunch of ghosts? Because they do. All right. Barriers. barriers. So, what's up with a barrier? Well, you know, it's where you put your animals. It's where you put your animals. So, barrier building. This I'm not the most up to date with. I'm going to recommend Paul's Leave. Link a barrier video. you have permission. Just link one or two of your barrier tutorials. Because yeah, I'm probably gonna miss some stuff with the barriers. So the barriers breaking them down a little bit here. You have your habitat gates. You have to have this on your barrier to complete the habitat. I forget this stuff all the time. But as you're drawing them out, it is like a drawing system, basically like a little bit of a node system. So you click your first node, bam! And that's your starting point. So before we get going, depending what animal you're putting in here, obviously, you're gonna wanna affect the height of it. So that's this guy right here. Click and drag, gonna go up and down, up and down, up and down. You can also move your initial node around if you don't like where it's at. And then you're gonna have this, and this is gonna follow your mouse around. You click, look at that, and it puts it down. So now right now, as I'm bringing it around here, it is snapping. Because I have angle snap on. If I hit spacebar, it turns that off and it's freeform now. And you can see right here is angle snap. So angle snap, you can affect it on 15 degrees all the way up to 90 degrees to do just 90-degree turns. You know, 45-degree turns. Or again, hit spacebar or just click this checkbox right here. Whew, 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 whew. Another hotkey, plus minus keys are going to decrease and increase the length of your area here, of your fence piece. Or you can do it here by clicking and dragging as well. Straight or curved, pretty much how it sounds there. Straight one is gonna be just how we are here, straight. We can curve it here, and that will bring it down to a curve. Now I know a lot of people are running into the instance where they're using a different material, like using the wood. And if you look here, there's no curve. It's only straight. But now let's say you want to curve it, right? Let's say you want to curve it. All you have to do is select a piece like this and do that. And then it will change it to a curved piece. Now again, I have to reiterate that a lot of times, like this is probably not supposed to happen. It's probably not like a thing that Frontier doesn't want to happen. Use this while you can, because a lot of times when we find really cool game-breaking things like this that are really helpful, Frontier will come in and fix them, and then it sucks. So use that while you can. I don't know how long they're going to keep that around. So I use null fencing a lot of the times, because null fencing, if you don't know, is telling the game that there's a habitat there, but it's invisible. So it's invisible fencing, basically. So if we wanted to, we can come up here, take some rocks, you know, and cover this up. You know? So now there's null fencing, obviously, underneath of the rocks, but now we've blocked that area and built our own fence, essentially. So that's where null fencing gets nice there. Oh boy. I missed a lot. Becoming the tutorial man? I mean, do it. There you go. Go watch Paul's. I know, it would be, right? How do you calculate habitat size while building? I don't know. I'll be straight up. I don't know with that one. There should be a better tool. The spacebar has been broken for you. It's been driving you nuts. Have you updated your game since the last update? Because the patch helped mine there. You been looking for the darn curve feature? Yeah, the curve feature, remember, is not with every single one. The null has it off the bat. Concrete has it off the bat. Glass has it off the bat. Wood does not. Steel mesh does not. Brick does. So you'll see it as you're clicking through. You'll see that they do it. But again, you can go through and click on the curved part of a null fence or any other kind of fence that does curving, and you can click that section, you know, so we can click that little section here, and we can change it to whatever we want to. Oh. The problem with this pointing out great tips is that Frontier patches them. They did it all the time in Planet Coaster. It's true. Hey, what's up, Mr. Domas? It's good to see you, dude. I didn't know if you were gonna come around because it's just a tutorial thing. So let's get rid of these here. Why would they patch out curving fences? Ryan, it's just as it, Paulsley and I have been dealing with Frontier for a little bit now with Planet Coaster and stuff, and we used to be able to do a different like game-breaking kind of cool things with Planet Coaster, and then they would fix them and patch it so we couldn't do it anymore. And it's like, why? So I kind of jest a little bit, but it just seems like something that's we all like and it's really cool. So it just seems like something that Frontier would come in and like fix. Does null fencing have a height or just to the sky? You can do any height you want to with the null fencing. I mean, not any. It'll hit a max. Still out there. It'll hit a max, but let's see if I can get it. There it goes. Come on, let me do it. Double click. Bam. So you can, you know, really bring it up super duper high if you really wanted it to. But null fencing is kind of neat where you, at least to my understanding of it, you don't need to really worry about how high it is necessarily, unless you have like pathways going, you know, up and through your habitat really high in the air and stuff like that. But for the most part, you know, if you have, you know, your null fencing just right here, you can just cover it up. Just cover it up. Oh, it's so hard to find it after you do this. I just want to get rid of it. Something else you've been seeing me do a little bit here. Let me put down my fence so we can actually see, so it's easier to show it off. I've been double clicking a lot on things and having it come up as building. I think a lot of people don't realize you can do this. This was not in Planet Coaster, but you can double click on a heck of a load of things and they'll start building like that. So instead of having to go through and like click an edit barrier, sure, it's like you're saving a step, but if you just double click on stuff, it'll pop it up into the menu. Same with the pathing tool. If you have a path and you want to go into the pathing tool real quick, you double click on it, it'll bring up the pathing menu. And same thing for the build menu. Same thing for the build menu. So if you have this, just double click it. Or, I'm sorry, it has to be a gridded piece. That was the stipulation. Yeah, let's say you want to edit it, you just double click. And that'll bring up the whole building menu. There you go. Bam! So there's a few little things there. Frontier fixes underwater path bug. Oh no. You want to watch my man in High Castles, dude? I'll message you on Discord. Hey, cheers. Yes, let's get our, we'll get the collab going, Paulsley. Absolutely. So, cool. So yeah, that was general, just very general barriers. So, oh no, I'm sorry. I did forget some stuff with the terrain. So let's say you have some terrain-filled habitat. There's a few different options that we can funk around with here. So see how it's kind of, it's matching it right there and it gets taller. It's matching the height, but it's bringing the, it's making all that area right there. Let's say you don't want it, like we don't want that to be a thing. Make sure you're looking right here at your height modes. You know, flat top, that's going to keep it flat top, so it's not going to raise with the land at all. Flat top and edible bottom. Then you can click that there, and we can edit the bottom of it. See, it's kind of hard to see, I know a little bit, but... So there's different options you can do with your terrains and stuff like that there as you're going through. There's that. Windowed modes. We have windows, so we can put in glass right down there. Click it again, put in the one-way glass as well. You have your different options there. So there's that, and then the next thing, oh, that's right, I was gonna mention this. Your plus button here. So if you see our plus button here, that adds in a node. Why this is important is, let's say you want just like a really small section of wall to put like your habitat gate in or something like that. So you'll have that. So then you'll have two sections of different wall piece right here. So you can do that, you know, pretty well as much as you want to. Then you can go back through and let's say we want to have this, that, this like that, this one like that. And this one is going to have, you know, a window. So you can split it up into different sections and tell each section what you want it to do, basically. So how much is a daily designer or an amazing YouTuber due to badass skill or just great deal of time? I feel like I need a million years to play this game. I think when it comes to a design kind of thing like this, a design game overall, that hopefully this isn't too controversial, but I think a lot of it comes down to skill or just that kind of mindset. I think you can learn it, don't get me wrong, and I have seen people like improve a heck of a lot, you know, from playing from Planet Coaster to, you know, now and stuff like that. But it definitely, I think, is a mindset. It's a certain person has a better eye, a better just feel for designing kind of thing, you know. I mean, yeah, I don't want that to discourage anyone, because everyone can design, obviously, but I know some people get discouraged like comparing themselves like a Daily Designer or a Sylve or something like that, and it's like, yeah, remember, like, yeah, they've been doing that stuff for a long time, and they're just innately in them is that, you know, that prowess to do that kind of thing, you know what I'm saying? So just noticed the first house fund. May just buy you a couple of bricks when I'm finished. Thanks, dude. Yeah, we're finally in the market. We've been married a few months now, and we're ready to be in the market. So she said she devoted hours to learning, but she also has skill. Yeah, I mean, anyone that has a certain amount of skill is going to have to still take time to learn. You know, the different pieces that we have, the way to manipulate the pieces. That's a big thing with designing, especially in the Planet series games, is to not use pieces the way they were intended. Case in point. Case in point. Windows as walls. This is a huge thing in Planet Coaster. Huge thing in Planet Coaster. Well, let's say you want to build, you know, something really small, like a small wall set or something like that. But we can't use this. So then people are starting to do this where they flip the window backwards, and then now this is a new wall. You know what I mean? So like these games, you can build some amazing things with what they've provided you for like the Indian set, the New World set, the African set, all that stuff. But then after a point, you have to start thinking way outside the box and use pieces totally different than what they were meant for. One of the famous stories of Planet Coaster and Silverette is when the alpha came out, and we were all playing it. Everyone was building pirate stuff, and yeah, basically everyone was building pirate stuff. And then Sylve came along and built like an alpine mountain out of rocks and took like a lamp and like flipped it upside down and used that as a support. And apparently everyone at Frontier was like, what the what? I didn't think that people would, you know, use a lamp as a support structure. And so you gotta like really take yourself out of the box when designing and building something kind of thing in the Planet game. So Rudy built half a park like this. What, with windows as walls? Yeah, I'm sure he did. So let's build a quick habitat here, just a quick little square one, because I want to talk about the animal welfare and all that fun stuff. Oops. Okay. There we go. The panels get too long sometimes, so if you have a really long panel that's not connecting like that, shorten it down and it should be okay. All right, so there we are. There is our habitat there. So look in the habitat menu here. This is gonna be everything for your animals that they need. Everything as far as like keeping them alive, basically. So as you're going through here, it's kind of overwhelming at first. You're just like, whoa, look at all this stuff. And like, let's say you have, you know, some random animal in there. You're just like, I don't know, sure, have a that looks good. Filters are your best friend here. You go to filter right here. This icon comes up in almost every single menu. You can go through here and go through different filters, and you're gonna see species. So let's say we're going for our aardvark. Now this is going to limit down everything that the aardvark would like to have. And you can break down even more. So let's say you're looking at your aardvark and its food enrichment is not that great. So if you go here, you'll see enrichment items, and it breaks it down, food enrichment. So there's all your food enrichment items right there. Toys, there's all your toy enrichment. Climbable, if it was like a orangutan or something like that. So yeah, there you are there. And you know, heaters and coolers, remember we were talking about earlier, if you're in a really cold map and you have an animal that needs to be heated up, you know, here's your, you gotta put your heaters down, and they'll give you a, you know, an area of influence and radius there for that. So you gotta think of management in that way. Shelters, animals, you know, they like to have either a hard shelter. Some of them don't need a shelter at all, which is kind of nice. There's some pre-built ones here, but that are, oh my god, huge, that are nice to use. But You can always build your own if you would like to. So there is the habitat. Learning Planka from watching the big creative guys. I need to learn to play inside the box. Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it, Pippi. That's a fantastic way to put it. Learn how to build how Frontier wants you to build. You know, it's like the Indian set. It's a really fleshed out, amazing set inside the game. Build a really nice Indian themed area, not a park. Don't do a zoo because they're ginormous, but an area, just a little area. Make like a habitat, like a food court, a gift shop, and then maybe like a seating area. Yeah, a little plaza. And then just theme that to the Indian set. And if you look at it, you're like, damn, that looks like a freaking Indian area or whatever, you know? Then you can start to maybe be like, okay, but what if I took this piece and just get familiar? That's my biggest piece of advice to anyone just picking up the games. Get familiar with the building pieces. There are so many building pieces and there's gonna be so many more to come. There's gonna be DLCs and free updates and all that stuff coming. So get familiar with the pieces. If you know what the pieces are, you know how to intermix them and flip them and do this, that, and the other thing, then you're on a good start. You're on a good track. Silverware is so amazingly talented. I love everything that Silverware makes. Sylvia. So cool. Let's look at the nature and construction tabs kind of go together a little bit. Let's look at the facilities tab. And we're going to keep this habitat there because we're going to be using it. Let's get a nice little pathway out here. We're going to start to get guests in the zoo and stuff. All right, facilities. So facilities has a heck of a lot in it as well. So facilities are going to be where your guests get their food, drink, where your employees are, where your small exhibits are, where your education stuff is, where your attractions are and stuff. So how do you use the shapes? I'm clueless. Like the art shapes in construction, tab that. We'll get to that. To avoid big creator types for Planet Zoo, I want to hardcore show me what I can really do. You don't watch me in my videos anymore? So in here, if you go through, so this is gonna have you know, all of the stuff here, obviously, but then if you look through here, we have small animal exhibits, and there are some pre-built blueprints already hanging out here, which is, you know, really nice for those of you that, you know, don't want to do the building stuff. We do have pre-built blueprints already set to go there. But if you don't want to do that, you want to do your own, here's the small exhibit there. So as we're placing this, I guess we'll start to talk about what I'm doing with hotkeys and stuff. So left click and then it's out here and we can just move it around with my mouse. You'll have a little grid form around it. I'm going to hold Z. And you'll see as I hold Z, this menu comes up, and as I move my mouse left and right, it will rotate. You can also hit spacebar and it will go on a grid. Same as before. Here's your menu over here for that. And if you notice with small exhibits, they have multiple entrances. They actually have 4. Small exhibits can be viewed on all 4 sides. So do not forget that. Right? So there's your small exhibit. We'll put something in that in just a minute. Next up, you have your guest facilities. We kind of covered a little bit here before, but this is going to be all of your food, ATM, merchandise, information kiosks. Information kiosks are important. Toilets, zoo entrances, all that fun stuff. Staff facilities. Oops, let's see here. Why fit the blueprints with the single pieces? I don't understand what you're asking. We gotta go to work. Enjoyed your stream though. Talk to you, Drew. I'm gonna have to come down and visit. Dude, yeah, Harrison. Good to see you as always, duder. Have a good day at work, man. I didn't even know about the pre-built blueprints. Ah, yeah. Oh, and Jonty, he's about as far as I'll go down the line. You've been doing your paths differently? Yeah, we'll get into pathing and stuff for sure. I know if I go over something too quick, just yell at me. Just yell at me. But yeah, as we're going through here, that breaks it down here. You have your, you know, keeper huts here. Again, pre-blueprinted out, so if you don't want to build, you don't have to. They're pretty nice as well. I do like how a lot of these are looking. That's really nice. So keeper huts. are going to be where your keepers, just like it sounds, where your keepers are going to go to prepare food and all that fun stuff there. So typically I like to keep the keeper huts close to habitats or in a general area. Like if we had, you know, this habitat and then, you know, one, like 3 or 4 more here, maybe have a keeper hut here to supply all 4 habitats kind of thing. So again, that's where your staff is going to go. Your zookeepers are going to go in to prepare food and all that fun stuff. And we'll actually hire one of those bad boys right now. So here's your keeper. There they are. So now you see here, keeper is going to be wandering. They're going to eventually, they'll just automatically wander into your exhibit here, take a look around, see what the animal needs, and kind of go from there. Next up in facilities. Got your quarantine. That's where sick animals are going to hang out if you need to. Now, note the size. There's a small one and a large one. Vet surgery, same thing. If your animals need to, you know, go into surgery, then this is where your veterinarian will run into the exhibit, get the animal, bring them out, bring them to surgery, do the thing, then bring them back. There you go. Staff room, just like it sounds as well. All of these are pretty self-explanatory, so I won't like go too much in depth with them. Research center, this is going to be where your veterinarians go and do research. So for those of you playing franchise and challenge mode, if you want to do some more research for your animals, specifically your animals, this is where you're going to do that. That's where you're going to do that, is in the research center. Now on the flip side of that, we also have our workshop. So those of you, again, in franchise and challenge mode, if you want to get new themes, new rides, new barriers, stuff like that, you're going to send a mechanic to research in the workshop. How do you do these two things? How you do this is first you need to make sure you have those employees. You need to make sure we have a veterinarian and a mechanic. Okay, and then you look down here, we have our vet research and our mechanic research. Now we have everything already researched, and there's no power apparently. But there would be a big menu that comes up here that you would send your vet and your mechanic to research. Now, while they're doing this, they are not accessible to your zoo. So the mechanic is not going to be going around repairing your fences. They're going to be busy researching. That's where it becomes important to really make sure, you know, you're managing well, basically. John T and John, yeah, they're good dudes there. Petting zoo animals and marine animals DLCs as well. Yeah, I think so. Got had out. I bought the game last year and have been playing it all week, so this is all basic stuff by now. So yeah, no, it's all basic stuff. So have a good one, Arbase. Always good seeing you, dude. Always good seeing you. So there's that, and then the last thing is your trade center. If you've noticed, this whole time that we've been playing, my animal trading and exhibit trading have not been lit up, and that's because I don't have a trade center. Trade center is how you do everything. Last week, I figured. I was like, dang, he got an early copy of the game. But now that we put down this Arbase, now that we put down this, now we can do our animal and exhibit trading. So you need to put that down first off if you want to get animals in there and everything like that. So now that we have those lit up, let's go back through and talk about animal trading. Animal trading breaks down into basically 2 different categories. You can pay for them with cash, or you can pay for them with CCs, conservation credits. The luxurious conservation credits. What was I gonna say? Okay, so as you're going through here and looking through your animals, the best thing to note for animals is their appeal. So if you click it once, it's gonna bring up the highest appeal animals, and these are like your big ticket attraction animals, right? So you got your gorillas and elephants and lions, all that fun stuff. Franchise mode players, remember that you're messing with a free market, a free online, ever-evolving market. So I can't really speak too much to franchise mode because, again, that free market is going to always be evolving and changing. Challenge mode, however, that's a little bit easier to work with a little bit, and yeah, so you can always pay for animals with cash if you have it, or with conservation credits. If you pay with cash, you can't send them back out into the wild. or I'm sorry, released into the wild. And if you release an animal into the wild, you get some conservation credits for that. So it's kind of a little bit of a payoff. You're paying for it with cash, but you can't release that animal into the wild for conservation credits. However, you can buy, let's say let's say this flamingo here and this flamingo here, and if they have babies, then you could take those babies and sell them for conservation credits because you didn't buy them off the market. You know what I'm saying? So for those of you doing challenge mode and franchise mode, I always recommend, buy low, sell high. So buy low, buy like an Indian peafowl, go through something here that's low price, kind of higher appeal, and then sell it for high. So there you go. Next to it is exhibit trading. These you don't really have to, you just buy them basically, usually almost always with cash. And yeah, then these are the ones that go back into your, let's adopt one. Go into the small exhibit training area here. So if you buy it and you're like, well, where the heck did it go? It goes here if you don't send it to the zoo right away. It goes down into your storage here. So you can select it, move it, place it in, and there it is. And as we're looking through here, don't just place the small exhibit animal and then leave it. It'll probably die. You need to, oh boy, something fell. You need to go through here, and why don't I have power? I thought the entrance gave off power. Oh, I got rid of the entrance. Duh, I'm dumb. Okay, let me put that back real quick. There we go. So as we're looking through here, it's gonna break it down right here for you and everything, right? So now you see the exhibit going way down like that. What the heck? So let's go click through here. So animals, they'll tell you how many animals are in here. And we can click on this and it'll bring up the animal menu, but we don't want the animal menu. Tell you the layout. It doesn't like its layout so much. Let's put some of these in here. These are all researched items. Again, we're in sandbox mode, so we have these automatically. Large rock pile. There we go. So now the enrichment layout is all the way up. But here's where it's too hot. Way too hot. So we literally are going to make it a little bit cooler in there for it. There we go. Then you can see the humidity. We could probably raise the humidity a little bit and it'd be a little bit happier. So never just throw an animal in there and then walk away, because it'll probably die. It'll probably die. Next thing that's really cool with here are the windows. So you can close up the windows. Let's say you just want guests looking here, right? You just want them looking in through here. You can also edit the windows to do like a 2D facade. A lot of people miss this. They're like, oh, well, I'm clicking this and nothing's happening. What the heck? Make sure you click OK, and then it'll show up. So you can see it's just like that. Then we can do the 3D facade, click OK. It doesn't cost anything. It just adds in a little bit more. So I like the 3D facades. I think those are the best. So there you go. Now our little guy, little girl. Where is she? There she is. She's up there. See how it highlights it? She's all happy now, hanging out. There she is. So there's a little small exhibit. There you go. How big of a snob do you have to be to say, if only they had a 5-star lion? These old low-tier animals are so pedestrian. I think it's more like the difference between like a San Diego zoo and like here we have like a little woodland zoo that has like literally like a giraffe and like a lizard and like, this is like smaller. I guess that's like what they're kind of going for, but yeah, I see what you're saying. So I didn't know about the exhibits needing power until 2 days ago either. Oh, yeah, yep, changing the temp. That is important. So there we go. Let's adopt an animal real quick. Adopt an animal. All right, so we just adopted an animal. We adopted this African elephant. So you can, if you'd like to, send it straight to the zoo. We're not going to do that though. We're gonna look in our animal storage. And there it is. And we're actually gonna do 2 of them. Let me get one more elephant. I wanna show that you can do something here. So let's say you have 2 animals, 2 of the same animal, I should say, in your storage here. You can move them one at a time if you'd like to by doing move and then clicking over here. But if you'd like to, you can click both of these and click both of the animals over there at the same time. I should say, I don't think it has to be the same animal, but so yeah, I know you can do that there. Click them both and they'll be released. Now, how to get animals in your exhibits. Zookeepers don't bring them. Veterinarians and what are they called? Caretakers. Those two will bring, he's supposed to at least. There he goes. Vets and caretakers will bring animals into habitats. No other staff member does. So keep that in there. Have to go, doctor office calling. Hey, CNB, always good to see you, my friend. Thanks for hanging out as much as you did. Thank you. All right, so now that we have animals in here, let's go ahead and take a look at the animal tabs here. Break it down. Yes, I know the welfare is gonna be bad for them. It's just tutorial. So as we break it down here, you can see, you know, the name here. If we want to change the name, you know, we can do it here to, you know, there's Mel now. It tells you the age. Look at this graph right here. This tells you the part of their life that they're in. So you see here that they're 19 years old, and this is when they're getting. So right here is young. Here's their main life, and here's old. All right, and that's gonna tick as they're going. So if you're ever not sure how old an animal is or something like that, you can look at the graph too. Welfare and stuff like that's gonna break down by, you know, the nutrition, break everything down there. Last meal quality. This is something a lot of people miss. If you want to improve the meal quality of your animal, you're gonna click on the barrier, go to animals, and here's your food quality right here. You can bring it up to grade 3. That's the highest grade that you can do. You have to research this. If you're in, again, franchise and challenge mode, you have to research that for the specific animal. And it does cost more as well. So you are putting more of a cost for it, but your animals are gonna be happier. So go back to our animal thing here. So now that will all go up. Social needs. Tells you here we need more space. Social group needs too few adults and juveniles in the animal social group. Habitat, gonna tell you where it's bad as well. There you go, breaks that down. Terrain here. I know, buddy, I know. So it's saying that they want a hard shelter. Remember, your hard shelters are these. That's not big enough. So you see the hard shelter went up immediately after doing that, but it's not quite enough. You can just keep, you know, placing them down there until it's enough for them. There they go. Terrain, that's going to have to do with the terrain distribution. So as you're going through here, you can click on this and it'll bring up the menu for it, and then you can start to go through and it'll affect it in real time there. So soil, we can click on that and it'll bring up a soil. Now it's going to bring up the heavy soil. You can switch it down to light or heavy, whatever you want it to be. We're going to affect our intensity over here as well. This is getting into terrain tutorial a little bit. Because we don't want, if it's 100%, it's 100% intensity, and that's just going to be dirt, you know? So if we don't want it to be like that and kind of blend it a little bit, we can bring the intensity down a little bit and just kind of paint almost. You'll see it's just a little bit blending in just a little bit more. And you'll see as well that our soil is going up, long grass is going down, and that is good. And now technically those elephants are pretty stoked. Oh no, they're fighting because it's too crowded. What heat maps do you use most often? I use... For animals, definitely animals, I use the habitat traversable area. Because a lot of times, especially with node fencing. So example, when we were talking about node fencing earlier, let's say we make this node. Null, I'm sorry, null, I keep saying node. So now, if we go into the heat map, you'll see here, it's yelling at us. And what does this mean? Walkable escape point. Means they can just walk out, right? And there's other ones up here too that they can climb out to like a tree or anything, or that they can jump off out of the because it's too low. So now again, dealing with the null fencing, if we go through here, and just for example, we just use the rock. See how the habitat barrier comes up? You can just block it. And you have to be careful with this because sometimes certain animals can climb up rocks and different things. So you have to kind of design a little bit differently. So now we hit H again. And see how it blocked it now. So there you go. Yeah, that's probably the one I use the most though. That's probably the one I use the most. I don't want to keep seeing them fight, so we're going to pause it. Shows where the animals can walk. Yes, exactly. I'm not here, just in spirit. I appreciate your spirit. I appreciate your spirit. So yeah, exactly, Pippi. That's I use that one a lot. Like you said, using it for the Pride Rock. If you want to have a lion specifically walk up on a little thing of rock, yeah, using the traversable one is good to use there a lot. So it says here that they want some water. So that's gonna get into terrain stuff some more as well. But yeah, that's just kind of breaks down the welfare of the terrain of the animal. The environment. We touched on this earlier. We're gonna talk about the zoopedia. If you go in the nature tab here and go into our filters, see how the continent that it's from is Africa. Fair enough. The biome is desert grassland. So we're gonna go in biome, desert grassland. So now these are all the plants that the elephants like in their habitat naturally, right? So then as you place them, we're gonna go down here and see that gave us 17% from that one tree, and it's 100% covered now. The coverage, if you go over the coverage, the welfare will go down a little bit there. So something else to note as well is that, let's say, for whatever reason, let's say this palm tree, like you want to decorate the outside of the habitat and you want to get the palm trees right up next to it. Careful, because of course it doesn't count. Maybe I have to play. Oh, heck you, it counts every other time except when I want to show it off. There it goes. So if you get, if you get it close enough and it's overreaching into the exhibit, they count that as the exhibit, as inside the exhibit, okay? So a lot of times, yeah, you'll see random trees around it and stuff like that. Gotta be careful with that. Definitely gotta be careful with that. That covers that. Enrichment. This is gonna go back to covering the habitat, like we did earlier, remember? Filters. Species, African elephant. Here's everything for the African elephants. So they like that, and they'd love a large barrel feeder, and they love that, and they love that, and that. And then look over here. See, we have 60 out of 40 now, 150 out of 420. We'll do this one, and a little bit of that, and you just kind of keep putting stuff in there. Now I'm obviously just throwing it in there, right? But you can just kind of, there we go, until it finally gets their entire enrichment there. And then here's their interspecies bonus. So we might not have needed to do all of these enrichment items just like that. We could also have thrown in, go to animal trading. We throw in, the... Is this still the Planet Zoo soundtrack? Okay, good. I don't want to get demonetized. And then as they, they'll throw the that guy in there, and we'll go back and see that for the enrichment that I messed up and didn't look. But for example, if they actually did, then it would be good. So, anyways, going through here. This shows their timeline of how old or young the animal is and where they came from as well. Social, we need some more animals in here. They just want some more buddies. And then finally the genetics tab. I'm just gonna be straight up with you. I haven't really messed with the genetics tab that much. And breeding and stuff like that. I really haven't messed with that much, so I'd recommend looking up someone's tutorial for that kind of stuff, because it gets really complicated. As far as I can see, it's just like, what am I looking at? So I just haven't taken time to look at it, to be honest with you. So cool. That breaks down that. That breaks down the animal tab there. Let's jump into, we did the facilities as well for the most part, right? We did utilities, pretty self-explanatory, I feel like. Bins and benches, same thing. Got bins and benches. Sit down. All that fun stuff. This starts to get into the building menu kind of stuff, to be honest with you. Oh, the last thing, yeah, transport rides. Whoops. Rides, and how to build them. So this seems pretty second nature to me because it's the same builder as the Planet Coaster builder for the most part. But let's build ourselves a little Jeep ride, and I mean little. So you're gonna left click down, and there's your Jeep. Look at that. Oh my gosh. So we have our building tool out here. So the first one here is your length. That's going to do just like it sounds. You can decrease or increase the length of it here. Go up or down. Go left or right, and it always follows your mouse. We can always do angle snap and stuff like that too, right? So if you want to get it more exact fine tune, we can just kind of. And then finally is the banking. What the heck? They have banking on this? That's so funny. I'm gonna do a 0G roll for this. All right. So if you want to place a piece, you're gonna left click. So this gives you a preview, right? And then you're gonna left click again. My elephant died. Well, probably because I didn't feed it or anything. I'm a jerk, I know. Now you can also build in pause as well. So that is building for the most part. I mean, as we go through here, you can make a little whoop-de-whoops. You can go underground if you want as well. Then we can dig that out later. That's what I wanted. And then eventually when you get back to incomplete track section of any kind, you can hit this and it'll autocomplete it. Bam! Autocomplete it. Bam! They have umbrellas for tables? Yeah. Franchise mode pisses me off, though I have gotten better. Yeah. Can transport rides go underground? Yes. Yes. So yeah, as I just showed there, they can definitely go underground. So and then if we want to do, you know, you don't see the underground part? Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. So, yeah, if we want to do that, go through here, terrain, sculpting, push. And we're going to be pushing the soil away. There it is. There it is. Pull. We're going to pull the terrain back towards us. Here's a hotkey. Hold control. It does the opposite of the push or pull that you have. So you don't have to keep going back and forth between menus. So I'm holding control. So that's no control with pull, control, push. Go. Off topic. But you keep asking us about zoos you want us to suggest, but I just remembered we should check out Disney's Animal Kingdom. Yeah, yeah. We can do that. What's the other thing I was going to show for you? Flatten to foundation. Flatten to foundation is pretty much what it says. You're going to find the general area that you want it to flatten to. I know this is it's a little iffy with the terrain tool here, but let's say I want to get the terrain just underneath of our track. So I roughly get the terrain lines right where I want it, and then click, and then it will flatten the area that the circle is in. It's like this. So this helps to really move away a whole bunch of area and stuff like that. So there you go there. So there's that. Let's see, next thing in the terrain is flatten to surface. So it's similar to flatten to foundation, except flatten to surface is going to be, it's going to take a surface. See how it kind of aligns to surface basically? And if you hold and click, it will, you can kind of make valleys and stuff like that easier here, and you can kind of come down. You see it keeps conforming to the area that it's in. So you get these really, I don't even know how to explain it. But if you want to get like a gradual slope, you can kind of take it a little bit like that, just a little bit. I don't use flatten to surface hardly ever, to be honest with you. There's that chisel. Similar to flatten to foundation, but chisel is gonna chisel right through. It's like that. They're really kind of hunky to use, just a little bit. So my main ones are pull, push, flatten to foundation, and smooth. Smooth, very, very important. Does just what it sounds like, smooths out rough edges. So like especially up here, it'll smooth out those rough edges. This is important when you're making like a lake. Let's say we make a lake. So I push down, flatten the foundation. Make myself a little lake here. And see all these kind of rough edges around it here? Like these little Go through the smooth tool. Smooth that stuff right out. Then the last one is roughen. We'll add water. I just want to talk about that though. Roughen is just like it sounds. If you hold down, it'll roughen the area that's going through. So if you're building like a mountain or something, and you want to get it not as rounded and just a little bit different textures on it, I guess you'd say, take your roughing tool and kind of go through and gives it some different divots and dents and stuff like that. So back on topic. I was wondering if you could embed the service paths inside the actual wall of the habitats. Sort of like tunnels in the wall out of sight of visitors but useful space. Is that doable? Not inside the habitats, no. Oh, I mean, actually, yeah, I guess you could. Oh yeah, you can, duh, what am I talking about? Because you can have guests walking through. However, you would, what I would do for that, like if you wanted to have like a backstage area or something like that, what I would do instead of putting it inside like that, hold on, actually no. I'm thinking through this because I've never done it before. I never thought about it yet, but I'm gonna need to. Yeah, you know what you could do? I think, at least. So I think what you could do, for example, is that you could have this as your backstage area here, and then put regular construction walls here to block the null fencing. Right? I think that's pretty much what you're asking. So there's that. Let's go back to train. Back to train. We'll get into building and stuff. I promise. I promise. Let's see. Train stamp tools. These are new and these are awesome. If you're not utilizing these, you're doing it wrong. I was doing it wrong for a heck of a long time. But yeah, train stamp tools. These things are so cool. And yeah, just they do what they sound like here. You can lower and expand them. Make the height difference here. So you're going to have a big old, you know, block in the middle of the area there. Very nice to do. You have different shapes here that you can do. You can tilt it on the 3D grid axis and everything like that. So yeah, this is super duper helpful for starting things out. I know it doesn't seem like it, maybe like right off the bat, like, well, how is it helpful? I don't really understand. When you start to build mountains and hills and lakes and stuff like that, you'll still see where it really starts to really help out. Or spheres and stuff, like, yeah. I know a lot of people have been using, oh, here it is, the cylinder. I know a lot of people have been using the cylinder, and they'll use the, not fill, but this one to use, to build like giant holes, and they'll put a habitat down there and stuff like that. So yeah, no, the terrain stamp tool is, whoa, really important. Next thing is painting. We kind of touched on this a little bit already. Intensities and sizes over here are really important when you're doing this. So like blending together terrain stamps and paints and stuff like that. So you have the sand here, that's at 100%, you know, different sand here. You can start to combine them a little bit if you bring your intensity down, bring the size down, do a different, yeah, you can start to combine, like drawing a little bit. You can start to combine some textures that are kind of neat a little bit. You do this in Planet Coaster a lot too, but see how they kind of combine up a little bit and stuff. So train textures and painting and stuff. It's mess with your intensity a lot, mess with your sizes a lot, and you'll start to really get some neat combinations and stuff like that there. So, and the last thing is water for terrain. There's two types of water: rough water, calm water. A lot of people have trouble putting water in. Make sure it's you know, pretty symmetrical as you're putting it in and stuff like that. Smooth your edges a whole lot if you haven't already. But then you'll see this blue line form, and that blue line is where water can go, basically. So we can have a really shallow one like this. You can bring it up all the way up top like that. If you're having problems, it'll show red. It'll come up red, and if you're bringing it everywhere and it's really not doing it, just remember, go back through and smooth a little bit more. But again, there's two types of water. Neither of them, like, they don't do anything different. It's just aesthetically looks different. So you can use that for water than roughing, yeah. I'm trying. Hopefully I'm not all over the place too much. So animal, I know when the animal died. Yeah, that's great. All your vet. You couldn't get it, you just quit. Yeah, I remember the animals. Water works differently in Planet Coaster than it does to Planet Zoo. The water here is volumetric. So if we wanted to, Oh, hey, let me just openly mess with this real quick, even though I've never done it before. Underwater viewing. I've actually have not done this yet. There we go. I know I just went ridiculously fast through that. I'll go back through it. I did that on purpose, just to make sure I knew what I was doing. Yeah, so we can do underwater viewing. All right. So underwater viewing. So as you saw there, as I put this around real quick, to do some underwater viewing, you first want to make your lake area. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. This is just the best way I know how to do it. You want to make, you know, where your general area is going to be. I'll put the path down here. So to do underwater viewing, you're gonna get your barrier, set the area, you know, down in the water where you want it to be. So we're gonna make a quick habitat here. It doesn't have to look pretty. There we go. So, cool. Now that we have that, go back through to your terrain. It's not gonna like really show up, but you just have to click on the side of the wall here, and then it'll show up like that, right? And I'm sure you could do it up a little bit taller too. No, so it does cap out at the side of the wall. So again, it's not gonna show up here like where it needs to be, but you should be able to sneak it in just like that. Planet Zoo, I will get it watered on this time, yes. And don't forget, double click here, we can add in, actually we can just add in all glass, just like that, and then you have your underwater viewing area. See some hippos or anything like that, so there you go. There is that, there is that. What else am I missing? What else? Beautiful, yeah. Let's build something. Go to construction tab. All right, so here is 101. How about a walkthrough exhibit? Oh, okay, that's a good idea. Yeah, because we're still in a habitat, so yeah, that's a good idea. So let's make a quick habitat. All right. So for this, you're gonna need two things to get you going for a walk-through habitat. First thing is you're gonna have to make, or I guess three. You're gonna need to make your habitat. Then you're gonna have to put in the habitat gate. We'll put ours over here. And then you're gonna need to put in the guest gate. I think a lot of people forget about the guest gate. So it's literally, and you're gonna need two of them, unless it comes back, circles back around. We'll do two of them here. So now we have enabled it so that our guests can enter in there wherever we tell them to. So let's see. All right. So now you just build normal. You just build normal. So there we have our yep, excuse me, sorry. I have I keep drinking my Monster and get a little bit hiccupy. So there is that. Let me get I'm actually gonna put an animal in here so y'all can see how it goes. Let's put an animal in there real quick and have our guests hang out with them. So we'll go to our zoopedia. We'll find An animal that... Actually, I already know which one. We'll just do the Indian peafowls. What am I talking about? Just do peafowls. And don't forget to check which animals your guests can go hang out with, right? I already know that the Indian peafowls can do it, so. There you go. I don't want him to die this time. If I can help it, that'd be nice. Keep him around a little bit longer. Okay. Here we go. Cool. Alright, so they will bring them over that way. Except I just realized something else. I was sitting there wondering, I was like, why aren't there any guests? Oh my god, I know. There you go, okay. Anyway, so yeah, they will bring them over that way. There. Okay, cool. Because he always looks like someone's tickling his toes when he talks. Oh no! So what are the cues for? I wish they had a filter for the zoopedia. Me too. Cues are for... These. I guess I did forget something. Cues are for your attractions. And there's only 2 styles of cue. For right now, so. And then a regular path to connect it back up. Yeah. So, there you go. I want to see the peafowls go in there. Oh no, we got a bunch of protesters! Yay! Oh, they're moving them. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, that's we'll eventually go back to that and see them doing that stuff there. So, let's see. You can use a queue for a walkthrough exhibit. No, you cannot. I don't believe so. I don't believe that they will walk through this. But I guess don't quote me on that because they'll let me build that. Yeah, I don't believe that they will walk through it. Because a queue tells them to queue up for like a line, basically. So, anyways. How do you make the first entrance to the park/zoo that isn't hideous and makes you want to quit? That you have to do on your own. Not, yeah, I mean, you gotta have a just. Like for Thornton Hills Zoo, I knew what kind of zoo entrance I kind of had in my head generally, and then I looked up some reference images and I mean the outside. So no, the queues only work for the attractions. They will only queue for like the rides. So you can't just put down like a random queue anywhere and then they'll just queue kind of thing. So no, that's not a thing, unfortunately. So, but let's build a building real quick. Let's do. I think I covered everything else. If I missed anything, do let me know. So this is building like super basic 101 kind of thing. We won't get into too many advanced things. I'm getting hungry. I just realized I didn't eat lunch and it's 2:30, so my stomach is letting me know like, hey, let's wrap up in a little bit. Okay. All right. So a few things to note with building. You have gridded pieces and non-gridded pieces. Gridded pieces are almost always walls. And you can tell by right here in the upper left-hand corner, you see how it's like a tic-tac-toe? That's a gridded piece there. Let's pause this. There we go. So when you put this down, you're gonna start a building on the grid. So now you can see I have a grid. Wherever I put this wall piece, it's snapping to a 4x4 grid. Oops, actually real quick, let me make sure that...
To Drayton Manor Park's fireworks spectacular.
That's not what I want. Just play the Planet Zoo song. There we go. And you switch this to meters. There's a bug right now that if it's not in meters, it get all bugged out. Okay. So yeah, you start on a 4x4 grid, and then again, if you you know, duplicate or anything, or put another wall piece down, it will snap to that grid piece there. So you can place these down. You start to build wall sets. Now, something to note: you can also move walls off the grid just a little bit by moving it forward. So you can combine things like, you know, that kind of thing there. That's something to note there, just like that. Also, as you're building, find a non-gridded piece. Most of your walls are gridded, but if you go through and you're looking through like columns and stuff like that, you'll find stuff that's not. So when it's not gridded, you can see I can just place this wherever the heck I want to, but it's still part of this group. And you'll see up here, editing group 19. So what that means is that when I click on this, all of these are part of the same building or part of the same group. So if we're editing them, these are all, even though they're not on the grid, they're part of that structure. All right, so what else was I wanting to note about this? Use reference photos. Yep. Turn off in-game music so I don't fall asleep. Yeah. Build and don't get discouraged. Yeah, let's keep building. Let's keep adding on. What else do I want to note? Combining things. I see a lot of people get discouraged. You know, a lot of people say like, oh, my building just looks a lot of the same and stuff like that. Don't be discouraged to use different pieces for different things, right? So you use brick and stone and, you know, do a little bit of concrete, you know, here and there, kind of just combine different things, different materials. And it's where reference photos help out a lot as well. And scale is another thing. The 4-meter wall piece in the game is very tall. 4 meters is not 1 story. I know a lot of people who don't know meters assume that the 4-meter, this is your 4-meter, the tall wall. A lot of people assume that, oh, that wall is 1 story tall. No, it's actually almost 2 stories tall. So if you want to keep things in scale, kind of note that. You can always just kind of lower it if you'd like to, like so, or we can just start by building in scale, which closer to in scale would be 3 meters. So you see if we bring this up next to a person, that's a little bit closer to a story tall. So there's a little bit of design thing there for you as well. Buttons. Let's talk about all the buttons and stuff I'm pushing because I'm just kind of going crazy with the hotkeys. So let's say you want to duplicate an item, like this one here. I want to take this and I want to duplicate it. Normally you can go up here and hit duplicate and then it'll do it. Or you can hit Control D. Control D will duplicate that sucker. Let's say you want to do multiples. You can click and drag and highlight and it'll go ahead and take all that. And then same thing, Control D. Now I have all those pieces selected and I can move it around. So if you want to make really long sections of wall, you just keep selecting and like that. There you go. Hello from Ottawa. Nice jersey. Yeah, you like this? I'm surprised you're saying that. How you doing though? Good to see you. Welcome on in, Dominic. Yeah, so there's that. You can also split pieces from the building. So let's say you're wanting to make not a square structure necessarily, but you want to make it just a little bit different. You can either do one of two things. You can either split this from the group. This is what I do. And then I hit Control X, which is duplicate the piece that we're on. Hit X. I'm just going to match it up. So now what I've done is I have this building group here, this building group here, and this building group here. So I have 3 different building groups now. And we can, you know, just edit this one like it's nothing. Let's say you want to turn it. Yeah. So you can move specific building groups out of a grid, right? To get different shapes and stuff. So again, if this building group is just those 3, and I just want to move those, I can hit Control X, and that'll duplicate it and put it on the XY axis here. And I can just move them all. I can hit X again, and that'll bring up the next radius here. And you can spin it and stuff. Now note that gridded items cannot be rotated on all 3 axes. So So you kind of saw it there, but if I wanted to rotate this, and if you can't move it, you know, like that, you can only move it left, right, only like that. Excuse me. All right, so again, just to reiterate, we want to go in here and we want to build and duplicate this and get it on the x-axis. Control X. Now we have it. We can put it anywhere we want. If you just want to move it by itself, you can hit X, and now it's on the x-axis, so we can move it. Or if you want to edit it, you can double click or hit R, and then we can just kind of edit it like that. So there is that. Let's see here, what else was I wanting to talk about? Trying to think of other hotkeys that I use. All right, so let's go on to off-gridded, non-gridded items. So default, it's going to come up with position snap and stuff like that on. Position snap basically means if I put my mouse on a wall here, it's going to snap automatically to the center point of the wall piece there. If I hit F, that takes it off, and now I can free place it anywhere I want to. If you're wanting to be very precise with things, you know, hit F, find the center of it, hit X, and that's going to put it on its own axis. Then I can kind of move it around like this, and I know it's centered. You know, hit X, I can move it around. This one you can rotate it like so. Rotate it this way like so. And remember, this is a non-gridded item. Non-gridded items, and you can see here, there's no grid in the upper left-hand corner. You can do basically whatever the hell you want. You can just place them, whatever you want to do, make, you know, anything. And, you know, as you have it up, if you want to switch up the texture or the build piece, you can take it, just do another building piece while you have it selected, and it'll do it. So you can really, this is where you really start to combine pieces and, you know, see what you can make with them and all that fun stuff there, so. That was all Control Z, by the way. Control Y is redo. Control Z is undo. So there's that. I'm trying to think. What questions? I'm trying to think if I missed anything for very basic building stuff. You can also add in all these props and centerpieces and stuff like that. This is where it comes into, you know, not only adding in things that are for building and stuff. So let's say, you know, you wanted to build like a flat roof area here, and on that roof area or whatever you wanted to put, you know, these elephants. There you go, you know? You can just combine things, put them together, just all that kind of fun stuff there. Shapes. How do you use? Just same way. I mean, so art shapes are just a filler, basically. So, yeah, you just use them. You know, I know that's a shit answer, but you just basically just use them. You know, you can make them different colors. I'll use them for roofs sometimes. I'll use them to fill in plazas, I guess, sometimes. Sink them down into the ground like this. You know, just make different like design things. And for, you know, these here, if you wanted to make, let's see. Okay, here's an example. Let's say you wanted to make a custom door. Let's say I make a custom door, and like this is my frame. It's not gonna be great, but this is my frame here. And I want to give the simulation of, oh, shift. I didn't tell you all about shift. Add that. As we're building, if you want to select multiple pieces, hold shift. You can select multiple objects and stuff. Hold control and it'll deselect them. So again, shift, clicking, selects multiple items. Control, clicking, gets rid of them. You can do it the same way like that. So there's that. And then Control X. Yeah, I'll just sometimes, you know, put Color this black. So, you know, you can kind of, I guess, maybe get the idea there a little bit. So art shapes just really whatever you're thinking. I know that's a broad answer, but art shapes are just there to do whatever you're thinking. What's your main source of inspiration for architecture? I like Street View, but have had a hard time recreating anything. Yeah, definitely Google Maps and Google Images as well. We were talking about it earlier, but like look up if you have an idea in mind for either like a habitat or a building. Like let's say you want to build a Victorian styled house for something, you know, just I'll literally go in and type in, you know, Victorian architecture and then look in Google Images and just kind of scroll down through, or, you know, Amazonian architecture, or I'll just type in different things in Google and I go into images and kind of scroll through and look like that. And then for recreating, I think a lot of thing that throws people off is scale. When we were talking about that, always keep a peep around. Keep a peep around to keep your scale in check. I see a lot of people that, you know, they'll throw down, we'll just edit this, you know, they'll throw down a structure, you know, like so. Separate this. And be like, oh yeah, that's a normal size house, but then you put it down and you're like, oh shit, that's ginormous. You missed Little Archer? Yeah, well, you know what, Mr. Gomez, I don't know if you're still here. Someone made Mr. Archer. But he's angry this is the Archer's cousin. He's angry because the Archer didn't get brought into the game. But yeah, we do have an Archer, so it is up on the workshop there. So nice. Whew. We're gonna cover paths, and then I think that's about it. I need to go get a quick bite to eat though. And I mean quick, I'm just gonna get like a protein bar real quick, and then we're gonna finish up with paths. While I'm gone, isn't it great? While I'm gone, think of questions if y'all have any questions. Hopefully I've been, you know, somewhat helping out a little bit there for everybody. If not, sorry. But yeah, think of questions if you can. If not, we'll just cover pathing, and then that'll pretty much cover it there. So yeah, I'm just gonna take the quickest of breaks. So I'm gonna be right back. I'm just gonna get a drink real quick and a little thing to eat. So I'll be back in under 5. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. Okay, let's jump back into the last little bit there. Thanks for hanging out, by the way. I appreciate it. It's fun. It's fun playing the zoo game and teaching y'all a little bit of the information I might know. So, oops, chat. Chat, come back, chat. There we are. You're loving this game more and more. I'm after years of playing Planko. I didn't think I'd enjoy a zoo sim, but damn, I'm with you, Dom. I hear you. When they announced it, I was like, yeah, cool. I mean, I'm excited for it because it's in the Planet series and we can see where the Cobra engine's going, right? But I didn't expect to like it as much as I am, and I think I'm gonna get a lot of hours to play out of it. I had no idea how awesome it would be. Right, and we're only in the. You gotta remember, we're only a week into it, or 2 weeks into it, basically. So a lot more fun stuff to come. So, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so I do have a tutorial out for pathing. However, we can go over it again because pathing is just always so much fun. Always so much fun. All right, path tool, everyone's favorite. Everyone's favorite. So to start off the path tool, pretty simple here. You have your setup of all your paths here. None of these paths do anything different as far as like guess speed goes or anything like that. They all walk on the paths similarly. I've seen a few people ask about that. To place a path down, left click. And then we're gonna have, similar to the fencing, you have node placement like this, so it's down a little bit there. But yeah, you just pretty much just gonna follow your mouse. If you go too far away, it won't do it. You left click, and it'll start building. So there's different types of paths as well. You have your queue, we talked about that earlier, that's going to be for your attractions and stuff like that. Then you have your staff path. Only staff members will walk on this path just like it sounds there, so there's that. Looking over here, we have your different angle snap is back. We like angle snap, there it is. Length, same thing, plus minus is going to affect that. Or you can click and drag over here. Camera, I don't mess with this a lot. I have free camera on, but if you click certain ones of them, camera will follow and rotate like. So you have different ones that the camera will follow it as it's going and stuff like, see how it does it. I do free rotate because a lot of times I'll need you to follow it and stuff like that. How do you do a round path? I got you there, no problem. Do a round path. We'll start from scratch. Just click, and then we'll do two. We'll do two of them, all right? I got it. So do 1, 2, and then if I move over, see how it follows my mouse? Now I recommend doing angle snap with this. So we're on 15 degrees, let's do a 45 degree one. So 45 degrees, 45 degrees, 45 degrees, 45 degrees, 45 degrees, 45 degrees. Perfect circle. Now you don't have to, right? Let's, you know, for example, let's say you have a little area that you need to get around because there's a bunch of trees and stuff, but it's a general circle or something. You know what I mean? So just generally, there's just some shit. You can still free do it around it. Oops, take that off. So you see, it's free placement, no angle snap on, but you can kind of still freely just kind of draw around it. Like so, and you can get it as close or not close. You can go through it if you want to as well. Yeah. So there's that. Go into your settings over here. Here's where things get really fun. Wait. Oh, my terrain! It's fixed! Oh, I think it's because I switched it to meters. Oh, that's so cool that it's fixed. What the fuck? That's a bug. Watch this. Watch this. I found a bug. Found it. Watch. Watch, watch, watch. We're going to switch back to feet. Watch. My terrain thing. Look at how much it changes. Ridiculous. So yeah, you have to play on meters or else your construction grid and everything is all funked up. Baobabs are so ill, aren't they? They're fucking weird. Oh, shoot. Hey, 1 second. I'll be right back. 2 seconds. Be right back. Okay, sorry about that. There we go. You switch to feet 2 back to, I mean, yes! So that is the bug right now. If you are having problems with the grid, the building grid, in your terrain and stuff like that, like I have been, switch to meters. It's the feet and stuff is just bugged right now for some reason. So, yeah. So, yeah, that's fun. So, okay, I have to kind of rush through now because we actually have to get going, I found out. Yay. Yeah, we gotta get going. Me and my wife do, unfortunately. But let's talk about these dings over here real quick. Flattened terrain is going to do like it sounds. So if there is a big old hill right in front here, it is just going to plow that hill out of the way, whichever way you go. So you can kind of make tunnels like this a little bit if you have the terrain high enough. See that? So flattened terrain is really good there. Now what happens if we don't have flattened terrain on? Well, the path is going to try and go up it. And a lot of times it'll kind of work out a little bit, but it won't be a great result. Because now you're having people go on, you know, like a half pipe, basically, right? So maybe you want that to be a thing, but tunneling, kind of how it sounds, is going to try and make a natural tunnel for you there, just like that. There you go. Path supports, kind of how it sounds as well. If you want to build custom supports, don't have this on, but if you do, then see that the path supports will just automatically like that. If you want to take them off, you can click that and go back through and click on here, and it will get rid of them. Then you can build custom path supports if you'd like to. But there you go. Curved slopes. So if this is not on, and we do a slope, to do a slope, you're going to click and drag and then go up. Now there's two different ones. There's this, the first one with no stairs, and then there's stairs. So stairs, no stairs, stairs, no stairs. So there is that. Now if you don't have curved slopes on, if you move your mouse to the left and right, nothing happens. Tick that puppy on. You can see here, we can curve those. Right? So there you go. Like some crazy staircases there. Curbs on ground path. Again, this kind of comes down if you want to how in depth you want to get, I guess. So you can see the curbs that they automatically generate. Some people like to build custom ones, but you don't have to if you don't want to. Railings on ground Q. So remember, Q is the big thing here. So here's our Q, and there's the ground railings. If we take this off, so you can take it off in just little areas and stuff like that. Railings on elevated, we saw that already. There's those. Railings on ground path, just like it sounds. Ground path, right? Snap alongside barriers. This one's really important. A lot of people aren't utilizing this. If you're having some issues getting it close to your paths, really close to your barriers, make sure that's ticked on your where is it? Snap alongside barriers. It'll just automatically snap it right as close as it can get. Now here's a hotkey that might help you out. Let's say you're wanting to put a path right here, right where my mouse is, right there. I want to put it right there, but you can't do it because it's wanting to attach right there. Hold Control. It'll snap the path. It'll snap it away, so and it won't connect up to an existing path. So without Control, it wants to connect up right away. Holding Control brings it away like that, right? So there's that. Never used snap to barriers. How does that work? Hopefully that helped you out right there. Super helpful. Good, 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 good. Next one. Use T-junction when joining a path. This is good for joining two different textures up. So that means like if you have a path out here that's kind of la 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 and then it joins up, it'll automatically snap to make a T-junction like that better. If not, it'll kind of, see how it kind of goes like, eh. You can hold Z and it'll correct it, but this just kind of takes the place of Z, essentially. Control works in plan code. Yeah. Yep. Everything that I'm doing here for pathing is transversable to Planet Coaster as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then highlight hidden barriers. It's supposed to be off, but if it is, then if it's on, it'll show you where all the null barriers are that you've placed around, so you can get your path right up next to a null barrier. That fun stuff. So yeah, let's see. What is the other thing? Z. Let's talk about Z. Talk about control. Let's talk about Z. Okay, so Z worked differently in Planet Coaster, but basically what it does is this is the path automatically wanting to hook up to the path like that. If you want it to be like that, you can hold Z and it'll kind of do it a little bit differently. It'll kind of do it more rounded like that, so you can hold Z and it'll kind of do it like that. Now why this is kind of neato speedo, let me get the railings out of here, is because, oh, and we'll do plazas too, I forgot plaza. Let's say this little area here. You see how the path, like we can make a little corner junction like that? If you just click that corner junction like that and then delete it, you see what the path does? See that? Let me do it one more time. See how it's just like an elbow right there, basically? So we click, delete it, and then it'll form back up. So it kind of makes... go over here. So you get these rounded entrances instead of kind of hard edges. So again, you just find the little area like that, find the armpit, and then right click it. So, there you go. And then the last thing, because I definitely missed this, is making plazas and parking lots and stuff like that. So last thing is plazas and parking lots. So here we go. So you start with your piece there. Let's say we want to have a plaza that fills up this general area. So we're going to have it go this way. There we go. Align to grid. And now you see that as I align to grid, it's trying to find, as I put these over the paths, I can align to any of these grids, but I want it to do this one. So I'm going to click. Now I'm on a grid for my pathing. I can just make big ol' areas like that. Plazas, have you gotten to that one yet? You just made it for it. It's the last thing we're covering for it. So you have that, and then if you want to, these are square edges, but let's say if you don't want to have square edges, you can tick that off, and then we'll have rounded edges there. So there you go. And then same thing in this one, you know, if you want to do that corner trick, you can do that, and have your corner tricks there, and make a lot of different little thing there. Can you round them out? You betcha! Now let's say you have a plaza or a pathway that has a big open area like this and you don't want to put a tree in there. Or actually, let's talk about that real quick. I think like 5 minutes. Let's talk about little areas like this. You can do different things with this little area. A lot of people, you can, you know, throw in a tree and maybe put some, you know, some brush down or something like that. You know, there's a little area, little something right here, little bam, there you go, and then they'll maybe throw in like a fence around it or something like that. All that is fantastic. You can definitely do all that, you know. There's a fence and there's a fence and that's a fence and there you go. So you can do something like that, or you go to your architecture, roofs, flat. Let's do asphalt. X. You gotta do some stuff like that. You don't even have to use just the asphalt. You can go to the concrete and use the concrete if we want to. You can use them to kind of fill in gaps. Recolorable ones are the best ones because you can recolor it to the exact one. But yeah, there you go. So so cool. All right, I'm gonna go eat some lunch dinner. and we got to get going for the night. So, but no, hopefully this helped. Again, hopefully it got to everyone's questions about stuff. Hopefully, you know, explained it well. If you're watching this back in the future, if you have any other questions, do comment down below. Let me know, and I'll try and maybe make another tutorial video or something like that if I happen to miss anything there. But yeah, for today though, you can expect we're gonna do there's gonna be a challenge mode. There's gonna be a challenge mode upload coming tonight, and then tomorrow we should have Thornton Hills Zoo tomorrow, and then the day after that we should have another habitat build as well. So the next few days are pretty well lined up there. So yeah, thank you. But I want you to know how thankful I am. You've brought a lot of complex stuff down to you. I'm so happy. That's awesome. I'm really glad it helped. You know, if it could help at least just a few of you out. Awesome. And again, you know, in the future, if you all have any questions, definitely let me know there. So, hey, and if you're not already, down in the description, there's links to my Twitter and Discord if you want to stay up to date with, you know, when the stream goes live, when a video goes live. I share some behind the scenes pictures on my Twitter and Discord. Definitely join up down below there. So, but hey, thanks so much everyone for hanging out. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, until the next video or stream, I'll see you then. Thanks.